Alright, welcome friends. In this video we will build AudioGPT. Means that we're gonna talk to ChatGPT via our microphone and we also get a response back with audio. So let's get into that. Just to get started, what we need is of course an OpenAI API key because we are gonna use ChatGPT. And if you would like to use an open source model, then of course you could also go with this one instead. Of course you then have to modify the code. But for that, as I said, we're going to go with ChatGPT. Next, what we also need is ElevenLabs. So in this case, I registered at ElevenLabs for free because this allows us then to get one of their voices in order to speak back to us. So these are the requirements. Beside that, of course, you need a code editor. In this case, I'm using, VS Code. And also you need to have Python installed, as well as the libraries we're gonna see just in a moment. So let's get started. At first, we need to import the libraries we're going to use. And for that, instead of writing it, I just copy this. So you can see that quite a little bit faster. And you can see that we're using default libraries like operating system, the keyboard. So we can simply use our keyboard. Later on, we simply press the space bar. And if I press the space bar, then I get started with talking to my chatbot. We also use .env, in this case, to load my environmental variables, which is nothing else but my OpenAI API key, as well as my API key for ElevenLabs. Then we import temp file to store the audio file, OpenAI, sound device, and sound file also to get this device or the sound file which we record and send it to ChatGPT, and also then, of course, play it with ElevenLabs. And that's basically it. So these are our imports so far. So then, of course, we need to load our environment simply by calling load.env just to load the environmental variables, which are our API keys. So having done that, then I say OpenAI.API key in this case, and then I says just get it from my environmental variables, which is os.getEnv. And then, of course, the name you gave it, in this case, in my environmental file, so .env file, it's called OpenAI, and then underscore API underscore key. So that is that. Okay, so now we have that. And then, of course, the messages. So in this case, we need to define messages, which we send to our chat completion model from OpenAI. In this case, it's a simple message we're going to use. Let me just copy this and paste it in here. So you see that it's just simply a list with this dictionary inside, where we have a role, a system, and then simply a content, which is just the start priming of our, in this case, model. It's just a helpful assistant, and we want it to answer in 100 words or less. Of course, you can modify this the way you want to. So if you want to, for instance, have a financial expert, then of course you can modify this to you're a financial expert and so on, right? So that is basically the priming of our model itself. And then we need to have a few starting parameters, which is duration, which is this one, duration is equal to 5. Then we also need the fs, which is equal to 4400. This is just a few basic, for the sound file itself, some basic parameters, which you can play around with, but I chose default ones, which I've just found on the internet. And for the channels, I simply use 1 in this case. So that's basically it for that. Okay, so far, so good. And now we need to create a few methods here. So the first one will be that we record our audio. So I say record, in this case, underscore audio. And then what I need in here is the duration, and the DFS, and I need the channel, like that. So these are the parameters which you're going to use, and then we simply call a print, and that we do a recording. So let's say recording, and then ... Okay, that's just what we see in our terminal later on. So this is that. Now we need to record the sounds. We're going to record in this case, or recording itself. Let's call it recording is equal to, and I say SD. So from the sound device dot record. And for that, now we use the integer, and in this case we multiply the duration times this fs. Here we go. And then what we need is a sample rate, here it is, which is also fs, and then the channels, in this case the channels is equal to the channels. In this case, what we post inside. So let's actually call this channels, but then of course we need to modify it here as well. So like that. Okay, so this is just the recording, and then we also call sd.wait. So we wait a little bit of time for that, and then we simply print that the recording is finished. So print, and then finished recording. Okay, like that. Recording, you spelled correctly, and this is that. So that function here also returns then the recording itself. So return and then the recording like that. Okay, so here we go. So this function just takes our input from our sound device. In this case, it's the microphone we have, and then it just records that, waits, and then it stores it, and also, of course, returns the recorded audio. So then I define a global variable in my case. So let me go in here and say global. So it's everywhere available, global, and then I say audio file path. It's just a path which I store something. And now I need to transcribe the audio. So for that, I'm using another function which is called transcribe, in this case, audio. And this needs a recording, which we get from our record audio, so recording, and also this sample, it's fs. And then we just write into a temp file, so I call with, and this temp file, and then dot named temporary file, it's called. And then we give it a suffix, in this case, without the quotes, so we need to give it a suffix, so let's call it in suffix is equal to, and then we store it inside .wav file, so .wav. And beside this, we say that we do not want to delete it, because when I used, when I set this to true, then of course I had the issue that I cannot send the file afterwards to Whisper API from OpenAI to transcribe it, so I need to set this to true, delete to false. So I want to keep it, and I store it as temp audio. Okay, and now I just write it as f, so sound file.write, and we write in this temporary file. So in this case, temp audio here, and then .name, and also recording. That's what we want to write inside, so recording itself, and also that with this fs. Okay, so here we go. So, and then we just jump back to the beginning when we call temp audio.seek and then 0. So this is that. Okay, so we got that. And now let's just go back. This is just storing the file. And now we say file is equal to open. So we open now the temp audio.name. That's the name. And we read it in binary or as binary. And then we transcribe it simply by transcript is equal to, and now we say OpenAI, and here we call .audio and then .transcribe. So this just means that we send audio to OpenAI and it just transcribes it. So it gives us basically the audio as text. And for that we need the Whisper API, Whisper. Okay, and it's called whisper.1. And also which kind of file? Well, the file is equal to the file. So this binary file which we open here, which we stored in here. Okay, so we got this as well. Let me just scroll down a little bit. And now what we need to do is just we say messages in this case, .append, messages. So here we go, messages.append. And what we want to append is in this case the role. Okay, and the role will be the user because in this case it will be the sound. So what we spoke to, in this case, the OpenAI. And this will be stored, of course, in the messages which we need to send to our chat completion afterwards. So the content, and this one is equal to, so dictionary, the content is equal to the transcript, which we get in return from the Whisper API. And for that, we want to have the text itself, so text. So it returns dictionary, and what we want from this is the text itself, which is just a recorded audio, transcribed to text. Okay. So this should work. Let me just scroll up again. Okay, we got this, we got this, we got this. And exactly, we appended it here to our original messages. So far, so good. Now, after that, now we need to create a response from our OpenAI API. So we say response is equal to, and in this case, OpenAI. But this time, we do not call the audio, so not the Whisper API, but instead the chat completion API to create here. And what we send is the model itself. In this case, I'm using the free version. So GPT minus 3.5 minus turbo. And then for the messages, in this case, is equal to messages. So we send basically our initial here prompt, this one here. So that prompting or priming of the AI itself. the LLM, and then of course what we recorded with our audio is also part of the messages because we appended it here. Okay, so we got that, and now of course for the response itself, the response, let's say a message itself, message of course is from our response, and we would like to have the choices, because remember we get a dictionary back, and then we want to have the first element, and then from there we would like to have the message, and from there we'd like to have the content. So this should give us exactly the content, actually the real text which ChatGPT will return to us. Okay, so now we got this, and then of course we need to close the file. So let's say file.close, because we open it, and in this case we did not use a context manager. That's why we need to close it here. Then I also would like to get rid of the audio which we stored. So remember, we stored it here, so we set delete equals to false. That's why in this case I'm using the OS module to remove it. So let's say os.remove, and I want to remove my temp audio.name. So I want to get rid of the file so we do not spam our system with a lot of WAV files when we talk a lot. So we want to remove it afterwards. And then we want to print the response. So print, in this case, response message. So that just means that besides ChatGPT, talking to us, I also would like to see it in the terminal here in my console, what actually the output is. So that's why I also print it. You don't have to do it. You can comment it out if you want. Okay. And finally, of course, we need to return also the response message. So this function here, transcribe audio, what it does basically is just it stores the recorded audio as a WAV file in here. Then it transcribes it. So it sends the audio file, the WAV file, to the Whisper API. It transcribes it and it sends the transcript back to us. And then the transcript itself will then be put into our chat completion to actually get the response from ChatGPT, which is the response message. And this response message is just printed and also returned off this function. So now, when we have the message itself, the message currently is only text, which means that, of course, we need to play it somewhere. So that our, in this case, sound, we get back sound from our, in this case, AudioGPT. Otherwise, we would not be able to call it AudioGPT, right? So now we can speak to it, but we also need to make sure that it will return audio to us, and not only the text as we printed here. So that's why we create another function, which is called play audio. Play audio. In this case, we need to put in a text, which we want to play. Then we can define a voice. In this case, you can go to ElevenLabs and choose different kinds of voices. In this case, what I'm going to use is Bella. So she will talk to us. And there, of course, are also, male sounds. In this case, I'm just using Bella. But as I said, feel free to check out different ones. So, and finally, the model. And for the model, I'm going to use the ElevenLabs multilingual. So multilingual, it's called, I think. Just need to spell it correctly. Lingual. So multilingual, that should be fine. _v1. I think that's it. So we need to check that. But the reason why I'm going to use this is because I also tried it in my native language, which is not English, by the way. And for that, I was able to actually get also a response, in this case in German, because I'm from Germany. But the reason why I'm going to use this is because maybe if you want to try it out in your native language, which might not be English as well, then this would be probably a model which you're interested in. That's why I'm going to use this one. But just to mention this, there are also other ones in ElevenLabs, and you can find them on their homepage. But as I said, you first need to register there. And you can do this for free just to try this out. So, having said that and done that, let's just go in here. And what should this function do? Well, it should actually generate audio. So in this case, we can simply store it in audio, and we just call the generate function. The generate function, if I scroll up here, you can see it here is part of ElevenLabs. So you need to install this package. So via pip or conda, for instance. So pip install ElevenLabs. And then you can use those specific functions here. And one is this generate function in this case. And also the play function we're going to use just in a moment. But for now, let's just generate the voice first. So we're going to use the text. Then for the voice, we set it equal to the voice, which is Bella. And finally, the model. The model is equal to the model, which is this multilingual model. So now we have that. And finally, of course, we need to play the audio. So let's say play. And then we put in the audio. So this should help us to play the generated text. So the answer which we get from the OpenAI chat completion API here. So this is that. And now, of course, we need to write some kind of loop so that it actually runs until we terminate it. So we do this by simply using, for instance, in this case, a while loop. While, in this case, while true. So this is an endless loop until we break it. And then I say print, and now press space to start. You could also use another key. I'm using space here. And then I can call the keyboard and then say .wait. And I simply refer to the space bar. So that just means that at the beginning we get press space to start. You will see that just in a moment. And then until we press space, nothing happens. But when you press the space bar, then of course we get started with our AudioGPT. So let's do that. Let's say the recorded audio is equal to record audio. So which is our function. Where is it actually? There. Just, of course, we need to record the audio first. So let's do that with the duration and also the FS and also the channels. So our default parameters, if you remember, if I scroll up here, let's just check that. Here they are. So these are actually, let's pick it a little bit here. So these are the default parameters we've set, and we're going to use them now in here as well. So this records the audio. So when I speak via my microphone to, in this case, ChatGPT, to AudioGPT. So having done that, next we need to transcribe the audio. So we need to transcribe the audio to put the audio into text. And this can be done by simply stored in a variable. Message is equal to our next function, which is transcribe the audio. So the audio itself is the one from the line above, which is record audio. And then again, we need to put in this FS, which in this case here is required as well. So let's do that. Okay. And then we just print something. Let's say print, in this case, which is the chatbot or AudioGPT, or what do you want to call it. And what we want to print is the message itself. So message. So the transcribed audio. I also want to see that in the console. That's why I do that. And then we play. So let's just check that. Oh, there is a spelling mistake. Let me just check that. It looks at least this way. So let me just save it for now. And I think there's some error here. I need to check it just in a minute. But for now, let's just stick to that. I think the error is here, actually. This should actually be placed here. And okay, now we are good to go. Okay, so we've got that. And then finally, we play the audio. So let's say play audio. And we play, in this case, the message. So play audio from the message so that we get our sound back. And then, of course, finally, because we don't want to run it endlessly, we would like to have the option to break the loop. So we say if keyboard and then dot is pressed. There's an is underscore pressed method. And we say if I press the escape key, then we break it. So that's why I simply say here, if the keyboard is escape, then just break the loop. And the program is done. So let's just save this for now. And that should be it, actually. So this is our program. Make it a little bigger here. Okay, so that's the program. And we imported the libraries we need. We loaded the environment variables. We primed our ChatGPT or AudioGPT at the beginning. We set some default parameters. We recorded the audio. Then we transcribed the audio here. Then we, in this case, sent. Here we transcribed it. We send it to the chat completion API. We get the response back. And finally, of course, we use ElevenLabs in order to, get the response as audio. So that's it. And then we just use this loop in order to run all this. So that's it. So let's get started actually and give this a try. So it's called AudioGPT. So in this case, I'm going to my terminal here. So let me make this bigger. And then just run this using, in this case, Python. And then AudioGPT.py. So let me just think, what could I ask? Oh, I'm asking about animes, because I like animes. So let's say list top 3 animes, something like that. Okay, so now you can see, press space to start. And now I need to press my space bar, and then I need to ask my question. List 3 great animes to watch. Give me only the names.
1. Attack on Titan 2, Death Note 3, My Hero Academia.
And you've seen that the chatbot returned exactly 3 names. And I think these are great animes. And also it talked to us, which you hopefully could hear. And that's it. So you can see that it talked to us, it gave us the names, and this is AudioGPT, so ChatGPT with voice in Python. So one thing I'd like to mention here is with the ElevenLabs, I encountered some issues when I asked for longer texts. So that's probably not possible with the free version of ElevenLabs. Just want to mention this, just in case you want to have here a very long text that it might not work for you, okay? But you've seen that in general, this is the way it works, and we went through, we created the functions, and hopefully enjoyed it. So if so, please give this video a like, and also please subscribe to the channel. Thanks a lot, take care, and hopefully see you in the next video. Until then, best guys.